Hi, my name is the Grad Hacker and I help average graduates get onto high paying graduate schemes. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the informal interview. And you might be thinking to yourself, you probably don't need guidance on this, but I want you to watch this video anyway because there's a couple of things I'm going to share with you from my experience about what you can expect, what can come up, and basically how to go about getting past this stage. So I want to take you back a couple of years. Before I was applying to graduate schemes, I was looking for a placement year, which is basically in your second and third year. Between those 2 years, you do a year out in industry here in the UK anyway. That's what's called an internship in other countries. So I wanted to do one because it obviously helps you accelerate your career growth. Obviously, it gives you that 1 year experience, which really does a lot of benefit for you. So yeah, I was looking for a year out placement, and I actually ended up getting into Network Rail at the time because of my civil engineering degree. It aligned with that company, and obviously I um, did well to get into that. But before I got into Network Rail, there was a bunch of other companies that I applied to as well. And one of the companies that I applied to was, I won't mention their name, but basically they make houses, right? So they have like housing schemes that they build. And they called me to an informal interview, and this was after the formal interview had been done. And in this informal interview, one of the first things that I noticed was how genuinely they actually wanted to know about me. It was a lot more genuine, like I could see it. I could literally sense it in the way they were talking. Like they actually cared about who I am and like what I do outside of work and stuff. And the other thing was that at the time, so in engineering or in most industries, you'll have something where you can get chartered, which is basically when you're accredited or certified. And a lot of the companies that I was speaking to about, becoming chartered and my goals of becoming chartered, were obviously very, they were like, yeah, that's really good, and we can support you in that, and this and that, and we can give you all the guidance for that. But this particular company, maybe it was a bit smaller, so that's why they said this. But they said, look, we're going to be honest with you. Um, it doesn't really make that much difference to us if you're chartered or not. So it's all up to you. Like we don't really have the resources to provide you with the guidance to get you chartered, and it's just all up to you. And if you were to secure a graduate scheme or a graduate job with us as well, it would be up to you. It would be your it's your onus if you actually want to go for chartership or not. And I realized that um, this was said in the informal interview, whereas in the formal interview, the recruiter or whoever was actually the hiring manager had mentioned, yeah, we can help you with the with the chartership. Now it turns out that actually it was a different area. Like the recruiter who was doing the formal interview was from a different area of the business where they would allow that. But the person who I would have been working under was the one who did the informal interview, and that team obviously didn't have the resources to support with the chartership. So just from that learning experience, I want to tell you that when you are doing an informal interview, it's usually with the person who will most likely be in your team or maybe managing your team or who will be working very closely with you. Whereas the formal interviews, like the normal interviews that you do, may or may not actually be the person who you're going to be working with. So that's the first thing to remember. When you're doing an informal interview, just take note of the person who's actually speaking to you in that interview, because it may be very likely that that person is the one that you're going to be working with. So he just told me straight up, look, we can't support you in that. And that's not the reason why I didn't go for that role. They actually gave me that role, but I ended up going to Network Rail just because it was a better opportunity for me. But so that's the first thing. Like you will notice that in the informal interview, it'll most likely be someone who is actually going to be working with you. So be on your best behavior, kind of thing, because that will most likely be the person who is definitely going to have a touch point with you in the actual role. So I want to share with you some more tips as well now, getting into what you should do and what you should expect in an informal interview. So first things first, usually it happens when you're in the good books, i.e. they have some sort of interest in you. So just keep that in mind. It can be after a formal interview, so you might have had a normal interview and then they just want to, kind of catch up with you for a quick chat or something like that. So they're definitely interested in you, so that's a good sign. The second thing is it's more to see if you fit the job culture or the company culture. That's basically 90% of why they do this, because the formal interviews and the assessments and stuff are designed to see if you're actually good enough to be in the company, but the informal interview is more to do with how you are as a person and whether you're going to fit in the company or not. So just keep that in mind. The next thing is definitely you need to prepare for some informal questions, and some examples of these include: what do you do outside of work? Do you play any sports? Do you play any instruments? And then what are those sports or what are those instruments? And where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Those are the sort of questions that are going to come up in the informal interview. And you want to try and come up with some sort of answer for those. So if you don't have any hobbies outside of uni or work or something, either make something up or obviously find a hobby or talk about something which you're passionate about or you have interest in. Um, an easy one is if you have no interest or no hobbies, you could just talk about a football team or something like that. Just say, yeah, I support this football team, or I like this cricket club or whatever. Sports usually a good one. Or you could say, yeah, I'm just recently learning how to play the piano or something along those lines. Obviously, if you actually have something outside of work, that's the best. But if you don't, like a lot of people don't, so I'm speaking from that perspective, then you are going to kind of have to make something up. But try and keep it as genuine as you can, right? Um, and then where do you see yourself in 3 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? That is a question that comes up a lot as well, because they want to see if you're actually serious about the career journey and you actually see yourself in the company. So yeah, you want to try and answer that as best as possible as well. Appreciate that's kind of a hard question to answer because sometimes we can't even look past the next few months. Why are you asking about the next 3 years? But they're asking you that because they want to see if you actually have anything in your mind, for that sort of time span. So definitely an important thing just to come up with an answer for that. So the next tip I'm going to give you is carry over a lot of the things from your main interview or your formal interview. And this is things like researching the company values, your reasons for joining the company, and the role. So I teach I teach my students that a lot of the stuff that you're going to be doing in the formal interview, you do want to bring some of those things over as well. And the main thing you want to bring over is your three whys. So I talk about in my normal interview videos, you will have seen that I talk about the three whys. These are three questions that will always come up in your interviews or scattered somewhere around in your interviewing or graduate scheme journey, right? When they're trying to hire you or when they're wanting to hire you. So that is, why should we hire you? Why do you want to work for us? And why this role? Why do you want to work in this role? So you need to have an answer to all three of those questions. Why should they hire you? Why do you want to work for the role in particular? And why do you want to work for that company in particular? And these three questions they probably will come up in your informal interview as well, because they want to know, well, why do you want to work for us? What interests you about this role? These type of things will come up, and always remember that when they ask you this in the informal interview, they don't really expect you to give like a fully scripted answer. They want to see your genuine side. So, if you genuinely want to be in that job role, then that's the best thing, obviously, isn't it? Because you can speak about that very clearly. It's coming from a genuine place. Whereas if you're just trying to get into that job just because you wanna or you just have to, then you just have to go about it a little bit more professionally. Obviously, I'll leave that up to you to kind of figure out. But yeah, definitely have answers to those three questions, and that's just something that you've taken from your formal interview because that's probably what you're answering over there as well. Ask genuine questions about the role and your potential in that role. So don't ask like don't ask very straight to the point questions like how much am I going to get paid, because you'll find that out in your contract and then you can decide and negotiate then. But ask meaningful, genuine questions. Things like, what does the day-to-day look like in this role? Who will I be reporting to? What's the size of the team? And these are good questions to ask because it shows them that you've actually kind of got one foot into the door. You're actually almost ready to start, and it's just they just need to make the decision to bring you in. So these questions are going to be really key for you as well, because you want to know how big the team is. Like, is it a small team, which means that there might be a little bit more pressure on you to perform because it's a small knitted team, or is it a large team? So you're just kind of a number, and you can kind of pick things up a little bit slower because you've got other people to support you. who am I going to be reporting to? It may well be that the person that's interviewing you is going to be reporting, you're going to be reporting to them. So you can see from that person, okay, is it that a person that I want to work under? Or, obviously this is a bit hard to judge just on the first, interaction, but you can see like if this is kind of your vibe or not. So these are very important questions that you can ask, and they're meaningful as well. So they're not like, blunt or straightforward questions or something that you can find out on Google. The third tip is be authentic, but remember that it's still an interview, so do not let your guard down. Um, Although this is an informal interview, it still is an interview, and they are still judging you and marking you in their head, like subconsciously. So yeah, not the best place to start talking about all your mistakes in life and stuff. Obviously keep a boundary, but at the same time, you do want to show a little bit more of your personality, a little bit more of your hobbies outside of work, and show what type of person you are. And this is a great time to kind of be a lot more genuine than you would have been in a formal interview where you're just basically there to beat that interview. You're basically there to get the highest marks so that you can move forward. Over here, it's kind of like a two-way street. So you want to know what kind of person they are, what kind of company they are. It might turn out that it's a culture or a company that you don't want to work for. So it's a two-way street, yeah. But still, make sure that you remember it is still an interview, and you've got to keep that in mind. Learn how to talk well. This is 80% of your interview. When I was in Network Rail, I remember that there was, for other roles and stuff, my managers were like the hiring managers for those roles. They were recruiting, graduates and stuff like that. And there were quite a few graduates that would come in with like top grades, excellent universities, excellent university degrees, and excellent university degree grades as well. And then there'd be some that are a lot more average. Now, I remember once they were talking about some kid who had average grades and stuff, but he spoke really well. And this is literally, I quote, this is what he said to the other manager. He was like, "Yeah, I mean, this kid, he's got average grades, maybe not as good as the other guys, but he spoke really well, and that's what we need. We need someone who's got decent enough knowledge and grades, but also knows how to talk and conduct themselves professionally." So I would go with them. This is exactly the words that he said, and it's stuck in my head since that time. And I've realized that it's actually a lot of it is the way you talk and the way you present yourself. Yes, you need to know your shit as well. So I'm not saying, you don't know anything about the job role. You don't know how to do anything about the job role, or you don't know anything and you're completely zero, but you're talking the talk, but you can't walk the walk. You do still need to walk the walk. But what I'm saying is, you don't have to have the best grades or the best accolades, but if you can talk well, that's 80% of the game done. Because you've got to look at it from their point of view. If they're looking at you and you can talk well, you can string, normal sentences together, you can actually have a good conversation, small talk. Um, these are things which they like to see, because that is what you're going to be doing with their clients and their projects, and also the people that are working under them on their teams. So they're looking for those things, and that's really, really important. So even if you have average grades and stuff, you can brush up on your communication skills and make sure that you really know how to talk the talk. Um, and you need to be able to talk well. Now, I know that a lot of people that are watching this video probably they might not have English as their first language. I mean, I'm trilingual, right? So that's nice, but what that means is my English, the effort that I have in my English is kind of diluted a little bit, because I have two of the languages that I speak as well, like at home and stuff. So I completely understand that, and I've had to work on it rigorously to kind of get it up to scratch. So if you have to do that as well, by all means work on the way you talk, because that is one of the most influential things that you can do for yourself. It's one of the most influential skills that you can use for yourself to better yourself. All right, so that's basically everything that I want to share with you in regards to the informal interviews. I just want to say, if you're trying to get onto a graduate scheme, I highly recommend that you check out my Premium Graduate X course, which is linked in the description below, and I go through everything step by step on how you can secure a high-paying graduate scheme this year. So if you're interested in that, check it out in the description below, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.